What's up guys, and welcome to my buffed Black Swan guide. Black Swan is one of the two characters being buffed in the 4.0 update, and today I'm taking you over everything you do need to know in order to understand and build her, including a kit overview on everything that was buffed, best Lightcones, best Relic sets and Planar Ornaments, the stats you want to run, and then some general team building ideas. Before we hop into it, I do want to have a massive disclaimer mainly related to the background footage. The background footage in question you are seeing Black Swan being used in is recorded before the 4.0 update, so this Black Swan in the gameplay is not actually buffed, so please do not use this as a way to represent how she does function. I am but a frail scholar, a humble content creator who doesn't actually have access to the creator experience server, so unfortunately I have to be a peasant and give you regular gameplay off my account. So the footage you're seeing is unbuffed Black Swan, but the actual info I'm relaying to you and giving you in order to build her is all for her buffed form. So once again, please keep that in mind. Black Swan's basic attack will deal wind damage based off her attack to a designated enemy. Her skill does wind damage based off her attack to a enemy and adjacent targets. At the same time, there's a 100% base chance of reducing the defense of the enemy targets that were hit by 20.8% for 3 turns. Her ultimate will inflict Epiphany State on all enemies for 2 turns. Then will deal wind damage based off her attack to all enemies. In the Epiphany State, enemy targets will take 25% increased damage, and when gaining a stack of Arcana, there's a 50% fixed chance to gain an additional stack of Arcana, and stacks won't be halved after dealing damage at the start of the turn. The talent, each time an enemy target takes dot, there's a 65% base chance to inflict a stack of Arcana. While an enemy is inflicted with Arcana, they are also considered to be in Wind Shear, Bleed, Burn, and Shock states. At the start of each turn, they take Wind dot equal to 240% of Black Swan's attack, after which the stack count is halved. Each stack of Arcana increases the damage multiplier by 12%, and Arcana stacks up to 50 times. Additional stacks beyond the limit can still be applied, but will be removed after dealing damage. Arcana damage ignores 20% of the target's defense. Only when Arcana deals damage at the start of the enemy's turn. Adjacent targets additionally take Wind dot equal to 180% of Black Swan's attack. For technique, after the technique is used, there's a 150% base chance for each enemy to be inflicted with a stack of Arcana at the start of the next battle, and for each successful application on a target, inflicts another stack of Arcana on the same target and will be repeated until it was failed to be inflicted. For each successive application of Arcana on a target, the base chance success is equal to 50% of the base chance of the previous infliction of Arcana on that target. For bonus traces, her A2, when an enemy target is attacked by Black Swan, there is a 65% base chance of inflicting 5 stacks of Arcana on them. Her A4, when enemy targets enter combat, there is a 65% base chance that they will be inflicted with a stack of Arcana, and a 100% base chance that the defense reduction effect from the skill will be applied to them as well for 3 turns. After using basic attack or ultimate, there is a 100% base chance to inflict the defense reduction effect from the skill on enemy hit targets for 3 turns as well. And her A6 increases the damage dealt by all allies by an amount equal to 60% of effect hit rate from Black Swan, up to a maximum of 72% increase in damage. For her Eidolons, her E1, while Black Swan is in battle, enemies afflicted with a dot state will have their corresponding type res respectively lowered by 25%. Her E2, when enemy targets enter battle, there's a 100% base chance to inflict 30 stacks of Arcana on them. Her E4, under the Epiphany state, increases the damage taken by enemy targets by 20%, and Black Swan regenerates 8 energy at the start of each turn or when they are defeated. Her E6 increases the maximum stacks of Arcana by 30. When an enemy target is attacked by Black Swan's teammates, Black Swan has a 65% base chance to inflict a Arcana stack on them. Every time Black Swan inflicts a stack of Arcana on the enemy target, the number of stacks added is additionally increased by 1. We're looking at what Lightcones to use on buff Black Swan. Her buff role is back to being the primary DPS of the team, which also does make her signature Lightcone one of the best options you can use again, providing a 40% increase to the wearer's effect hit rate. When the wearer deals damage to an inflicted enemy with one of the dot states, each dot state will respectively grant a stack of profit, stacking up to 4 times, and in a single battle, only 1 stack of profit can be granted for each type of dot. Each profit stack will increase the wearer's attack by 5% and will enable the dot dealt to ignore 7.2% of the target's defense. 40% effect hit rate is good to get to Black Swan's goals, as she does want to reach 120% effect hit rate for not only guaranteeing a lot of her debuffs to land, but also that it increases the full amount of damage that you can give to your team. So the requirement is 120% effect hit rate, and this Lightcone significantly helps with that. And with the addition of Hycelenes being the brand new teammate that we got not too long ago, you are actually able to guarantee yourself a full stack profit of this Lightcone, as Hycelenes is able to make sure every enemy is inflicted with all states of dot very, very frequently. And so you are able able to get the full 4 stacks of profit, giving you the full effect of this Lightcone, providing you 20% attack and a total for dot damage dealt being 28.8% defense ignored, which is going to significantly increase the damage output of Black Swan, her Arcana, and so on. When you are using this Lightcone, it is easier depending on your investment to actually hit defense shred / defense ignore cap, as her Arcana is now able to provide defense ignore for damage dealt for that specifically. She has defense shred in her base kit. Now this Lightcone is also giving it the prisoner set, as you're most likely going to be running that, plus any other defense shred from stuff like Heistlin's ultimate as well. It is very easy to overcap, but even if you are slightly overcapped, as long as this Lightcone is helping you hit that overcap and at least a good portion of it, it's still going to be her strongest Lightcone for the best damage output. Again, 40% effect hit rate is very good for her goals, 20% increase to attack is also nice, and then the big defense ignore, depending on how much it is helping you, can actually be significant, making this her overall best in slot to use. The option you pick past her signature Lightcone actually does depend on what you want her to do. As I did mention, she actually wants to function as a primary DPS on the team now, so increasing her own damage is going to be very beneficial, but you still can very much give her a Lightcone that she is able to use to benefit the team overall as well. But for simplicity's sake, I'm going to be going over the ones that are mainly focused on her damage first, and then I'll mention the other ones after. One of them is going to be Eyes of the Prey. This is a 4-star Lightcone, so you most likely have it at S5, so that's going to be good, but it gives you 20% effect hit rate and increases dot by 24%, and at S5 it's 40% effect hit rate and 48% increase to dot. Very simple, 40% effect hit rate, that's as good as her signature, and then the dot increase by 48% is going to be a massive increase to her dot damage, which is going to be her entire source of damage anyways. So for a 4-star Lightcone, this is actually extremely powerful and one you definitely want to use. Depending on the team, you can actually use Goodnight and Sleep Well, which provides 12% damage up for the wearer, stacking up to 3 times, and also applies the dot for every debuff the enemy target has, which is 24% at S5. The reason I say depending on the team is just because Black Swan gives a lot of damage up for the team in general, and this can give you up to a 72% defense ignore as well, which again also applies the dot, which is good. But depending on the team, if anyone else is also providing some form of damage dealt, this can actually end up having diminishing returns, as it's a 72% increase in damage dealt at S5, which is a lot. But again, when you combine that with anything else giving you damage dealt, Black Swan's base kit, and now this, it can definitely end up being something else, and you're better off running Eyes of the Prey, but it's still a very much usable option for having Black Swan do good damage output. This one also increases damage dealt mainly, so it also does fall into the same thing as I mentioned with Goodnight and Sleep Well, but the free-to-play option, its showtime, is also usable. When the wearer inflicts a debuff on an enemy target, gains a stack of Trick. Each stack of Trick increases the wearer's damage up by 6%, that stacks up to 3 times, lasts for 1 turn, and when the wearer's effect hit rate is 80% or higher, increases attack by 20%, and at S5 it's 10% damage dealt and 36% attack. On the dot team, you're not going to have any issues stacking up Tricks, so very easy to get. And just how Black Swan functions, she has all the dot debuffs, Arcana, and then also defense shred, so it becomes a free 30% increase to damage dealt, and at least with this Lightcone, it also provides you 36% attack at S5, which is going to be very nice overall for her damage. So it's not just damage dealt, so it is a actual good free-to-play option, and the effect hit rate requirement is not going to be a problem just because you are going to need 120% anyways, so that full effect is going to be whatever. So it really just becomes a free 36% increase to attack, which also gives a total of 30% damage dealt, making it another good free-to-play option. Now, if you are running her more on the supportive side still, you have a few options here as well, such as running Heistlin's signature Lightcone. The strat with this would be putting this Lightcone on Black Swan and Black Swan's Lightcone on Heistlin's to make Heistlin's to do the most damage. This was actually the best strat you could do before Black Swan got buffed, but now that Black Swan's buffed, you don't actually want to do that. Providing 40% increase to effect hit rate when a target gets inflicted with a debuff from the wearer. There's an 80% base chance for them to enter the enthrallment state for 3 turns. While in enthrallment, for every 1 debuff applied by the wearer, increases the target's received dot by 5%, stacking up to 6 times. When the ally target gets attacked by an ally, increases the attacker speed by 10% for 3 turns. So it is, as you can see, more on the supportive side, gives the wearer 40% effect hit rate, so good for building Black Swan, increasing dot that is able to be easily stacked. Unfortunately, at E0, you're not able to get the full dot effect increase, but if you have E1, you are able to. But even without it being fully stacked, it's still good for a dot increase overall. And anyone attacking is able to get a speed increase, which is going to be good for Heistlin's and also Kafka mainly, and also your sustain if you're running that or whoever else. Not the greatest for Black Swan, just because usually nowadays you're not going to build her with that much speed, depending on the build at least, but overall is still a Lightcone option you can very much use. Statue's signature option is also good, providing 60% increase to effect hit rate for the wearer. After the wearer uses a basic attack, skill, or ultimate on our enemy target, there's a 60% base chance to inflict the unarmored state onto that enemy target. While in that state, the enemy target will receive 10% increased damage for 2 turns, and if they are under a dot state inflicted by the wearer, there's a 60% base chance to upgrade unarmored to cornet state, which will additionally increase the damage they receive by 14% for 2 turns. So But you're also able to reap the full benefits from this. 60% effect hit rate is going to be even higher than all the other options, as it's 20% more than the usual 40%. So building her becomes that much easier, and now you're able to make an enemy take up to 24% increased damage, as she is able to just stack the unarmored by just attacking them, and she also has the dot state, so you can upgrade it to cornered very easily. So just 24% increase to damage to those enemies, which is great for her personal damage, which is good for her to do damage to it too, but also your team, and is mainly a supportive Lightcone, not really focusing much on her actual damage. So if you want to run this Lightcone on her, it is also very much usable. Those are the only Lightcones I really recommend personally using. Again, I very much highly advise you to actually just build her for personal damage now. Black Swan's personal damage actually is able to rival or exceed Hyceline's damage if you were to take for the same investment and same build. That's how much the buff Black Swan can do when it comes to damage overall. So building her for damage is definitely the better play. But if you want to use supportive sets, one of those ones I did mention is good for before the tutorial mission starts for a supportive side. That is usable, but I don't really recommend it since you don't have a reason to spam ult like that. And on the dot team, especially with prisoner set nowadays, you don't really need the extra shred so much from something like Cypher Lightcone, and since you don't ideally want to build Black Swan with a bunch of speed either, the speed increase isn't as usable, hence why I don't really recommend those. For relic sets, the only one you really want to use is the prisoner 4-piece. Increases attack by 12%. 4-piece for every dot the enemy target is afflicted with. The wearer will ignore 6% of a defense when dealing damage, and is valid for a max of 3 dots. 12% attack, that's going to increase her overall sources of damage, mainly the dot, as it does get impacted with attack percent. And the 4-piece is also just good up to 18% defense ignore. So that is also just going to be a great increase for the dot damage, and this is always going to be the best in slot for any dot character that is dealing damage. So Hyceline's and Black Swan primarily now. So for the best output of Black Swan, 4-piece prisoner is going to be the unmatched set you want to run. Other than that, you really just run 2-piece if you are farming for it. You can do 2-piece of one of the attack percent increasing sets, so prisoner itself. You can do musketeer, you can do the wind soaring set as well, or even 2-piece of the hero set. You can combine that with 2-piece another attack percent, or 2-piece eagle for wind damage. That is kind of the only thing you want to do. You can also do 2-piece pioneer for damage against debuff enemies, but that's not going to be better than the other 2-piece combinations. Mainly 2-piece attack and 2-piece attack, or 2-piece attack and 2-piece win. And then ideally get 4-piece prisoner as fast as possible, as that is going to be the significant damage increase you do want. For Planar Ornaments, her best in slot is going to be the Revelry set, which will increase attack by 12% when the wearer's attack is higher than or equal to 2400/3600, increases the dot damage dealt by 12%/24% respectively. 12% attack, once again, is going to be great for actually increasing overall sources of damage, especially the dot, and reaching up to 3600 attack or higher is going to give you a 24% increase to dot damage dealt. This shouldn't be a problem since Black Swan is relatively easy to build with attack now, especially when you're running something like attack boots. And then you also want to account for Kafka when she is able to buff everyone's attack by a significant amount in battle. Because of that, reaching 3600 attack or higher in battle to get the full 24% increase to dot damage dealt is going to be pretty simple. And so for overall damage, this is by far the best in slot you want to use. You can still very much use Pan Cosmic, especially if you do need the effect hit rate, giving you 10% effect hit rate, and the wearer's attack will increase by an amount equal to 25% of current effect hit rate, up to a maximum of 25%. If you really need that extra push of 10% effect hit rate, you can use this. It gives you up to a 25% attack. Building Black Swan for 120% effect hit rate, byproduct, you're going to fully max this out, giving you 25% attack again. So again, if you really need that 10% effect hit rate, you can run this. Otherwise, Revelry is just going to be better. And those are the two only sets you really want to use. Again, primarily just farm Revelry. That's going to be your by far best for damage output. But if you really need that extra 10% effect hit rate for whatever reason, you can actually just run Pan Cosmic. For the main stats on the relics, for the body, you want to run effect hit rate or attack percent. If you are able to hit 120% effect hit rate without an effect hit rate body, then you will want to run attack percent for the absolute best damage output. But otherwise, you would want to run effect hit rate for anyone who's not able to reach that. For the feat, primarily you want to run attack percent, as you don't really need Black Swan to act a bunch in the battle to get the best output. Attack percent is going to be the best for not only her damage contribution in the battle, as Arcana is going to hit significantly harder, but also makes it easier to stack up Revelry as opposed to running speed boots. You can, however, still run speed boots and mainly just aim for getting something like 134 or higher, or even hyperspeed if you're really able to, if you want to maximize the amount of dot stacks you can apply. So you can max stacking Hyceline's a lot quicker since she is able to apply dots based off other people attacking, and also more Arcana stacks to apply. But attack percent is overall superior for the boots, and mainly just ignoring speed on her. For the orb, wind damage is going to be better, but you can run attack percent if you need it to max out the Revelry set bonus, but primarily you would run wind damage, and for the link rope you want attack percent. For the substats, first priority above all is going to be effect hit rate at 120% to max out her buff and also have a good amount of effect hit rate for her own debuffs in her kit. With 120% effect hit rate, you're going to have a much easier time landing all your debuffs and not really worry about it, and again, max out the damage dealt buff you are able to give to the team for best output. So 120% effect hit rate is going to be your far and none first goal. After that, if you are running speed boots and you want to hit a threshold, just be sure you hit breakpoint speed in battle, which is 134, and you can get it higher if you want. If you are running speed boots, you're probably trying to aim for a higher build anyways. In that case, just try to get it to as close as 160.1 or higher, or at least as close to it. And if you're running Hycelines Lightcone on someone, then it can be even easier. But if you are running attack percent boots, which is what I recommend, again, you would ignore speed entirely, and you would really just focus on attack percent, as the only other way to really increase your overall damage would be attack percent. So once again, effect hit rate, you want to make sure you get it to 120% before anything else. If you are running a speedy Black Swan, then you want to reach as much speed as possible, at least breakpoint. Anything higher is better. But if you're running attack percent boots, which again is better, you would be ignoring speed entirely, and then you would just focus on getting as much attack as possible. In battle, if you are running Revelry, which you should be, ensure you are reaching 3600 or higher. Team building is very simple with Black Swan, since she is of course just going to be on the Dot team primarily. So of course the foundation of Dot right now is going to be Black Swan after her buff, and then you would be running Kafka as well, as Kafka is a cornerstone of Dot in general. Third slot or second slot, whatever you're doing, is going to go to Hycelines, as she is also a crucial unit to the Dot team. Her plus buff Kafka was the one that revived it. Now you add Black Swan into the occasion as the third Dot character, makes it super strong. All of them have fantastic synergy. While she has debuffs, all of them really have debuffs. Kafka is able to buff them. Black Swan now is able to buff them. Both Hycelines and Black Swan do great damage. And then your last slot would go to a sustain, or if you're doing sustain this, another debuffer, or at least a buffer that works with them. If you're doing a sustain, primarily you would want to run Danheng Permanent Terror, and you would make the bond made either Black Swans or Hycelines. You can also run Fuofu as well. Her attack buff is beneficial across the board, and energy is also very beneficial. So those would be the main two, but really just use anyone that you are able to comfortably use and is available. You can even use someone like a Venturin, you can use Luocha, whoever helps you in that slot and is available. So in my case, I'm just going to go ahead and put Danheng here. However, if you are doing sustain this, then you would sub out Danheng, of course, and you would run a buffer that buffs these characters. The best ones are mainly running Robin or running Ruan Mei. Those two just work across the board and provide AoE buffs. Or you can use a debuffer such as Cypher. Cypher works fantastic with Dot characters, so the team would look something like this. And then you would sub out accordingly. If you're missing some parts of the Dot team, then of course you would sub them out. Just for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to remove this slot right here because it would be mainly focusing on these three. So let's say you just have Black Swan and Kafka and not Hycelines. In that case, you would really just run sustain last slot, and then instead of Hycelines, it would be another debuffer. Of course, aim to get Hycelines on a rerun. But in the slot, you can just put Robin or Ruan Mei or something like that, so it could just look something like this. And then last slot sustain, or if you're doing sustain this, you could again throw someone like the other buffer. So in this case, it would just be Robin, or Cypher would also go there as well. Now, if you're running her as a debuffer for whatever reason, you can actually do that. Something like the Akron strategy is actually applicable. So of course it would be Black Swan and then Akron as well as the main offender here. Can't even find her. There she is. So it would be these two, of course. If you're running Dot Kuron specifically, again, if you're able to clear with that, honestly, props to you. But of course, it would just be Black Swan, Kafka, Acheron. So I'm just going to go ahead and find Kafka, put her here, and then the last slot would go to sustain or support if sustainless. This also finishes the double nihility requirement at E0, so you can put a sustain here, or you can go ahead and put a support depending on what you do have. If you have Cypher and you do sustainless, you're going to have debuffs that are going to be significant. Specifically for Acheron, by the way, you would want to build Black Swan with speed, as Dot isn't the primary focus here. But again, this isn't an optimal team by any means. This is mainly just if you want to run Black Swan with Acheron again. I'm just throwing this in there to give you ideas. So for Dotcron, it would look something like this, and then you would replace Danheng if you want to do sustain this. If you don't have Kafka, you can put Hycelines there for specific Dotcron purposes, or again, just someone like Cypher. So if you want to have fun with that, go ahead. And that is the full buffed Black Swan guide. I do hope you found this video helpful. If you did, dropping a like would be greatly appreciated. If you're new to the channel or haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell for future videos like this, along with all other types of Star Wars content. And I'll see you later. Peace out.